Are empaths real, or is it just a trauma response? If this interests you, stick around and let's get into it. Hi, I'm Veronica and welcome to the Wholeness Shift. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm glad you found me. And if you're already part of the family, welcome back. I love you all. If you haven't done it yet, please take a minute to hit the subscribe button below. I wouldn't want you to miss out on anything good. I talk about practical spirituality and we talk about everything. We talk about all the things. So if this interests you, hit that subscribe button please, and hit the bell icon so that you know when I post. So today we're talking about empaths, and the reason is that several months ago there was this hot topic trending on TikTok, and it was started, I think, by one main creator who's very, very famous here on YouTube. I won't name names because there's no need for that. All I will say is that you can probably figure out who it is, but this creator, I tried to like her so many times. I tried and I just couldn't do it. Within a few minutes of watching her, every single time I was like, I gotta turn this off. I don't like her. And something about her energy was just off-putting to me. But I kept going back because like I'd get messages from you guys or comments and they're like, have you heard of this person? She's so amazing. I love her. And I'm like, maybe it's just me. Everyone else seems to love her. Like, okay, let me try again. And inevitably, every time I'm like, no. I don't like her. I don't trust her. Bad energy. And so I just was like, I'm not gonna have anything to do with her. I don't like her. But anyways, so fast forward, recently they did a documentary on her. I think you can watch it on Hulu. And so I watched this documentary because oftentimes when I learn about the real person, I'm endeared to them, and you know. So anyways, after watching this documentary, I was like, nope, I was right all along. Absolutely not. She's like a narcissistic cult leader. So anyways, if you can figure out who she is from that, then okay. But anyways, on TikTok specifically, I saw a lot of people stitching a video of hers where she's talking about how empaths aren't real. That's just a trauma response. And she was like being very condescending about the term empath and people claiming to be an empath. And everybody's like, oh, she's so right. I hate when people say empaths. Immediately no. Immediately no. And it, of course, I know that they're real because I am one. I know many of you know that they're real because you are an empath, right? And so I was dismissive of that information, but I also got triggered by it. I'm like, these people, they don't know what they're talking about. And so I didn't respond to it and make this video right away because I needed to sit with that for a little while until the ego subsided and until I was acting out of a place of information versus trigger response, right? So I've been sitting with this for a few months and I'm like, okay, how can I address this intelligently and not egoically? A lot of their basis for their argument was that empaths don't exist. What it is a person who has had a rough childhood and had their trauma triggered very early in childhood, and they were in danger all the time or in unsafe situations, and so they had to develop this heightened sense of what's going on around them. And so now, because they haven't dealt with their trauma, they're just calling it an empath. So my response to that is this. If you have naturally occurring spiritual gifts, most of us do, but in each life plan, you may have planned for yourself to have more access to some than others, or you may have something that triggers them to come online. You start meditating, you go through a trauma, something like that. That's exactly what happens here. going through the trauma of a difficult childhood, for example, can be enough of a stimulus to trigger, like, snap those naturally occurring gifts online. It brings them into being. It brings you into focus with them. So who knows if they would have been active that young or not, or maybe it would be later in life that they start to develop and you realize what's going on. But either way, who cares? It doesn't mean that they never existed. It doesn't mean that they aren't real. It just means that something happened, a trauma or something happened earlier in your life that triggered those gifts to become active. That doesn't mean that they are merely a trauma response and should be dismissed, because I think that there are a lot of people who are empaths who didn't have a traumatic childhood. If you're one of them, leave a comment below and let us know. The other thing that I want to talk about here is, I don't know if you guys have heard of Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton, you can Google him, you can look him up on YouTube. Brilliant man. But the scientist that teaches on epigenetics, he did a lot of studying, and he took, for example, he took stem cells. And you know, they would multiply every day, get more and more and more and more and more. So he ended up with this large amount of stem cells, all completely identical. They came from the same cell. That replicated, then that replicated. So they were just carbon copies of the exact same initial cell, right? So then he took a group of them and put them in this petri dish, and this one, and put them in this petri dish, and these, and put them in this petri dish. And the only thing that he did was change the environment within each petri dish. And what he found is that when you change the environment around a cell, it becomes an entirely different thing. These grew into muscle, these grew into bone, these grew into skin, you know. And so he started going and doing more research on this, and he discovered that your DNA, you have the power, whether through trauma and something difficult, or through intention and manifesting and meditation and things like that, you have the power to literally change your DNA and to literally change what you become and what you are. And so what I have to say is that, as most of you know, yes, empaths are real. They're completely real. You're probably one. I know I'm one. And sometimes that comes from us choosing to manifest our spiritual gifts into our life and to become more in tune and in touch with those. And sometimes it happens because we are put into a difficult situation or some traumatic event happens. Either way, who cares how it happens, as long as it happens? Or who cares how it happened? All you need to know is that it did happen. If it came from a trauma event, that doesn't make it any less valid. And the people who are dismissive of your spiritual gifts, all they're doing is showing their lack of education on the subject and their closed-mindedness and their closed-heartedness. That's all. So if you're an empath, be a proud one, and don't listen to any of these, the false light that's out there, if you know what I mean. Okay, you guys, I love you. I'll talk to you soon.